Hello, everybody. It's Carm Capriato. Wow. Week number 118, episode 118 of the Town Hall Academy from Remarkable Results Radio podcast. I just came back from Dallas, everyone. Went to the ASA annual member meeting and I had a great time. Did a lot of great interviews there. But what was so ironic is that we're having this Town Hall Academy today, and there was a panel yesterday about recruitment and retention. And I just got to give a few kudos and a few high fives to the panel that was there. If I could just find my document, and maybe I could remember it off the top of my head. I can't believe I did this. I wrote it up and now I can't find it. It was Tony Mala. It was Jeff Peavy from AMI. It was Roxanne Griffith from the Department of Labor. It was Trish Serator from ASE, and it was Jennifer Mahar from TechForce. And there was one other. I apologize if I don't remember her name. And I'm telling you, I was feverishly taking notes because this is exactly what we're going to talk about today. It's just amazing how much dialogue there's going on inside the industry over this topic and this subject. And I will share with you a few tidbits as we go through this, gentlemen. So glad to have you here. Hey, if it wasn't for Jasper Engines, we wouldn't be doing this. And they've been so supportive over the last 2 years to be our sponsor here on the Town Hall Academy. From Jasper's perspective, performance and reliability, that's what a Jasper's remanufactured diesel engine provides mile after mile. Now, Jasper's running complete engines are dynamometer tested with horsepower and torque ratings recorded. I've actually been in that plant. I've seen how they do it. It's an amazing testing program that they have there. And they also have a nationwide warranty included too. It's great, dependable service from Jasper. Thanks for all your support. JasperEngines.com is the place to go. I've got a great panel as we talk about how are we going to get smart students to discover a career in the automotive. I have to tell you something. I think it's our job, our responsibility to do this. And we've got to figure out as an industry on how to get together under one umbrella, one common voice. With me is Seth Thorson, shop owner, Eurotech. Two shops now, right, Seth?
Yep. Second one open this month.
Good for you. Brighton, Minnesota. And Seth created a $25,000 family scholarship. And was really proud to hear about that. Had him on. It was an endowment, actually, Seth, I think, for automotive careers. And we discussed that in episode 340. If anyone wants to go back and hear Seth and I talk about it and what his motivation and drive was. Dave Mockholtz is with us, the academic chair of Suffolk County Community College, part of the State University of New York system in automotive technology. Great interview we did together. Thanks for being here, David.
For having me.
Aaron Dalton is here, the North Kansas City Schools coordinator for School to Career Programming. Good to have you here, Aaron.
Thank you for having me.
And the other thing I would love to point out, compared to a guy like me with gray hair, are you a millennial?
I am, just barely on that edge.
Good. I'm glad to see it. That excites me that we have a millennial out there recruiting for CTE. Good stuff. All right. Hey, everybody, let's jump in here. We've got people on the Zoom, of course, webinar platform, tons of people out on Facebook. I'm sure that's going to grow. Anyone on Facebook, please do me a favor, click and share this into your favorite group or into your own individual Facebook site. This is a topic that please don't ignore it. Please don't say that it'll take care of itself. We really need to do something about it. Dave, I want to go to you first with a question. Are we selling ourselves short that the automotive is a fantastic career?
I think to some extent, I think a lot of our students, sort of the stopping point is whoever it is that they're working with at the, repair shop or dealership. And I guess kind of what I was after with that selling ourselves short piece is, we have to be careful who we're putting students with, when they're out at a work site, or when we hire a student in and they come in and they're gonna work with a master tech or they're gonna work with a B tech. They have to be with the right person because that person is going to ultimately sell your business and also our business to that student. And if that experience isn't stellar, the student starts to wonder and they come back and they talk to their friends. We see it here at the college all the time. It's sort of like buying a car or going someplace for a service and you have a bad experience. If the experience is a bad one, right, what's that customer going to do? They're going to go and they're going to tell everybody they know. And, usually the bad thing more so than the good thing, right? So we have to be careful, I think, as an industry of making sure that when we're bringing students in and getting, new people, into our businesses, that we're not selling ourselves short, that ultimately our culture is right within our business. And, from my perspective, making sure that students are in the right fit, at a work site.
How do we get this to be, and I'm going to use a crazy word here, and just don't jump on me when I say this. How do we convince that the public, the parents, the kids, that this is a pretty sexy, high-tech job today? Seth, any idea?
Some of it starts at, high school. We talked about the scholarship that entices kids to even go there, but we have to start at the high school level. And so my latest initiative, and we've accomplished that at one local high school, is we have a career path to trades now. So now the guidance counselors will actually present a class schedule as they become juniors and seniors to go into the trades, along with proposed incomes and things like that. And we're actually reaching out to high school students. We have a trade council now at our local high school. And that's just one school, I understand that, but it's something that shops can replicate if they want to get involved with even the high school students.
Aaron, how much are you seeing that the independent automotive aftermarket, even the dealerships, are getting involved with the middle school, the voice at the middle school?
So middle school, really, we don't, in our district, and I'm speaking for just our district and our experience here, we have just started working more with the middle school students, primarily 8th grade. We had a big transition in our district to where we currently have 4 high schools, we have 4 middle schools, and 2 6th grade centers, and then many elementary schools. So we're starting that transition to give them that information starting in 8th grade, to then think about that 4-year pathway to possibly be starting their junior year into the automotive program. So just this past year, we had different career fairs that we sold to the 8th graders at each middle school. We went to the middle schools and we brought in the automotive teacher and students this time. And then next year, our goal is to start bringing in those companies to talk with the students as well. So this year was kind of a test pilot. In the past, we've just had one large career fair where we brought in all 4 middle schools and a ton of business partners, but it was just too large and too much and too fast for the students to really grasp what they wanted. And so we wanted to have more time for them, was basically to talk.
Aaron, who was there? I'm trying to dig down. Did you see independent shops? Did you see people from automotive? Career fairs could be for all different kinds of careers.
Sure. We saw some more larger companies. We did have some of our smaller companies come in, our business partners that are primarily with our automotive teacher, because that's how we usually go to, is we go to our automotive teacher and ask, okay, who do you want to be there? Who do you want to help support? Because those that are supportive of the program, we want to have them come in and talk with students too. But our business partners are growing every year. We're getting more and more involved because they see the relevance of the high school students starting this pathway, which then leads into the college, our local community college automotive programs or 4-year institutes. So it's definitely changing and it's growing, not as fast as we would like, but it is changing.
Do you see the investment, David, at Suffolk staying up to speed so that you're teaching the right stuff with the right equipment?
You mean in terms of the funding for the program, or?
Yes.
Yeah, it's always a challenge to get funding. I mean, our success at Suffolk has really hinged on manufacturer partnerships. We're up now to 7 direct manufacturer partnerships at Suffolk. So, granted, that's a bit more dealer-based. However, those programs also attract students that, say, you know what, I think I might rather work in an independent repair facility. So our resources have been pretty abundant in that regard. Also, things like grants, different funding streams, creative funding streams in many instances. It's definitely a challenge, but there's a lot of willing and able partners out there that are willing to come in and work with the right programs that are doing the right things, and ultimately that's tied to outcomes. You're not going to get, support from manufacturers or, tool companies or whatnot if the structure and the integrity and the quality of your program isn't there. So for us, quality has been paramount, more so than quantity in terms of students coming out. It's really been a quality game for us. And really that's the key in engaging, all your partners, is to make sure that at the back end, the student that's coming out is selling your program for you.
Make no mistake, I broadcasted the independent automotive aftermarket, and you had said that you've got some manufacturer programs out there. Of course, that connotates the dealer network for me, and even at Erie Community College here, I'm part of the State University of New York system, and I'm on the advisory panel, and there's 85%, manufacturer based on the advisory panel. You had said something just a few minutes ago that says it ain't bad to come out and work for an independent. What did you mean by that? How could you stitch that together for me?
Well,
what are they saying? Why would they want to go to an independent? Well, I got to go to a dealer. Big brand name is going to be great, maybe long career, lots of benefits. And we're finding that there's a 50% churn.
Sure. I think a lot of, students that come out of programs that wind up in dealerships initially, it depends. It's highly dependent on the location, but in many instances, they wind up working in the maintenance area. Right. So they're doing oil changes. So they get disenchanted pretty quickly if they stay in that area for too long. So the benefit and allure to an independent shop, a shop like Seth's, I haven't personally been there, but I hear wonderful things. To go in and work with someone that's passionate about the brand, passionate about the particular, type of vehicles that they're working on. And the ability to, work on other jobs and in other roles other than just lube tech is a key in really selling the program. So a lot of our independent partners, they're having students do a lot more variety of work than they would be doing if they started off day one at a, let's say a BMW dealership or something of that nature.
Thank you for that. Seth, I think the crime here is that we know that we've got to get on our soapbox and get out to middle school. Aaron, you were so poignant in saying it's got to be 8th grade. Well, at least we have a number. We have an entry gate, 8th grade, okay? We've got to get to the parents. We also need to get to the counselors. We need to get to the superintendents and the principals. And let's please talk about that, because something very interesting came up yesterday on that panel that I'd love to ask you guys. But Seth, being involved, and here it is. We're going to go out and say the message: high tech, 100 million lines of code, really a great business to be in if you want to be in high tech, the computer on wheels. And then we put them in a maintenance job for how long, right, David? You just mentioned that.
Long time.
So, but everybody's got to pay their dues. And as I think the industry has discovered, and I think we have to do more as key industry members to figure out, not to figure, let me restate that, to create the career path. So if someone's going to come into maintenance, they know how long it's going to be, and they're going to be shuttled, if you will, or mentored through the chairs. But if you come in and you say, I thought it was going to be great, but I think I'm in a dead end job because no one's ever outlined it. Do you see that going on in your neck of the woods?
Yeah, we see some stuff for sure. One of the things that we did real well is we worked with our local community college, and actually they do a shop tour of their graduating seniors of the independent, and that they brought them to my independent shop, and that opened their eyes like you wouldn't believe. I had 6 or 7 kids wanting a job immediately after that tour. Obviously, I hired one of them for my new store. I always have an apprentice at some point on our staff, but they got the toured independent. They got to dispel some myths of what they thought the independent was. They got to see factory tools. They got to see a very high-tech facility, an air-conditioned shop, white floors. They got to see a really high-end facility that all of a sudden encouraged them that, okay, there are alternatives in the dealership. And that made a huge difference in their perspective, and whether they came to work for me or went and applied at 5 or 6 other independents. I talked to the kids after, as they're milling around the shop and looking around, and some of them said, hey, I'm going to apply at this other independent. And I'm like, great, kind of give them some options of what's out there. As far as what we lay out for our apprentices when we hire them, we have a 2-year plan laid out with every pay bump, which is big to millennials, what they will make if they hit every goal every 6 months to a year. They get a pay bump every 6 months, all the way to a 2-year graduation program of that.
I love that. I mean, you're talking about a graduation program inside of your business?
Yes.
Isn't that cool? I mean, that's a great idea. So hey, listen, you're coming out of a 2-year post-secondary, and we're going to put you through our own 2-year program.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. And does it require ASE? Does it require, the mentor apprentice kind of assessments? Give us an idea.
So, I mean, when they first start out, we have them do some real basic stuff. And then as they work towards their ASEs are one part of moving up. So the idea is the average student takes about 2 years. Now, we have one student that had no automotive experience, so he went to tech school. He's probably on a 3-year plan because he's missing some goals, but he's fully aware where he's at and he's loving it. He just did a cylinder head on Audi. He loves it. But some of our other guys have made it in 2 years, and it's just, you show core competency in certain areas, and then we move you up and we graduate you to, a full service tech after about 2 years.
Got it. Thanks for that, guys. Aaron, messaging. I think one of your big jobs out there, getting to the 8th grade students, is messaging. But my key is do we have to change the parents and the school system too to recognize what we're doing up here?
We do. When students still think about automotive as a dirty shop, and I'm going to get my hands dirty. And what our instructor has already done is automotive is very high tech now. And so we're beginning to make sure our equipment is up to date. We just purchased a new $20,000 printer because putting prints on cars, that's a big industry right now. So we're bringing them different ideas towards automotive. So now we're working with our graphics department to help us send students to the automotive program to work on graphics, because that's just not everywhere else on billboards. It's also on vehicles, and you see graphics on cars everywhere. So we wanted to grow that. And then working more with the latest computer technology too, to show students that, okay, maybe you're a programmer. Where do you want to work within automotive too? So it's just not getting your hands dirty. Yes, we still have those classes and they're fantastic, but students aren't understanding at an early age what it's all about.
Have you ever been asked to go out and speak to any middle school career day? And I know that maybe you can't just talk about automotive, but when you do talk about automotive, what do you say?
So usually with those career days, I have the automotive teacher come and talk. But what we found with talking with students is having other students talk to them. They can listen to us all day long, but in the end, we're teachers, we're principals, or we're parents, and they're just not going to look at it the same. But students have more of an effect. So today, just before I came on, we had brought students in to talk with the other students and tell them their experiences that they've had in these programs. And that sells it a lot better. We've seen our enrollment increase more from the students talking to the other students than from us. So that's been our biggest impact so far.
I always wonder if the real world that exists out there really knows and understands that we're a $381 billion industry, 2.4% of GDP, 4.6 million professionals in a variety of careers work in it. We represent 3.2% of the total U.S. non-farm employment. There's 300,000 jobs available at any time, and on and on. Average age of a vehicle is 11.7 years. Lots of opportunity to earn money, fixing today's transportation needs.
Correct.
And yet, it's a dirty blue-collar job. And on the panel yesterday, one of the, I think it was Roxanne Griffith from Department of Labor, she said, you know what, construction's no longer a dirty blue-collar job. And she went out to point about, that the construction with all the tools and equipment and all the technology that's being added to the labor force, it is not as filthy and dirty as it is. And someone also mentioned that it's cheaper to put a CAD/CAM class or an IT class room or CTE program or CET program together than fund automotive. So what are we doing and Seth, you put the $25,000 endowment together. Mm-hmm. Somebody at that level must so much believe in you to take that. And so they probably are so committed to automotive because of the things you're doing.
It did, according to instructors at the college, raise some eyebrows for some of the deans and higher up, which is how those colleges work. And of course, then, not to be outdone, one of the bigger dealership groups created their own endowment. So now there's more money for kids to go. It's great.
How cool is that? Well, thanks for starting off the pendulum swinging. David, do you feel that there's going to be a huge pendulum shift in the fact that people are going to start coming into the automotive once we get our act together and we start helping the recruitment effort? The industry, starts helping the recruitment effort?
Yeah, and I think right now it's kind of a unique moment in time for us as an industry. Every single phase, as you said, of the automotive industry and ancillary industries, for that matter, are in a severe shortage. They need people. So the time for them to be creative is now, which I think is, like Seth mentioned, the idea of an endowed scholarship. We're seeing, programs that are offering tuition reimbursement, tool incentives. So I think it's going to be a very good time to get into this industry, starting now. Within the next 5 to 10 years. I mean, especially with the ramp up of technology, it's not getting easier to fix a car. Maybe in some regards it is, but the amount of information and technology that's on a vehicle would be attractive to the right person, but it has to be tied to compensation. It has to be tied to, the other ancillary pieces that would make this an attractive field. It's not just compensation, but there are other pieces to that as well. Going and working in a shop like Seth's, that's a spotless shop. That's a huge draw to somebody that wants to work on high-tech, European vehicles. And, the more Seth's that we have in the world and the more manufacturers that we have in the world that step up and do the right thing, yeah, this is going to be a great time to get into this industry.
So anyone who's on Facebook and anyone who's on the Zoom webinar platform, I'm going to ask you to tell us something. Who's on advisory panels, both at high school or post-secondary? Just, yeah, me too, by the way. And so we're all qualified somehow here. But from the panel, please get in there and say, I am. And the point is, there's no doubt that either we are doing our job or we're not doing our job by getting involved in education. It's one thing to good apprentice, grow your own, build a learning culture inside your business, but you just can't do it without getting involved. And Seth, I mean, you're the best person here for a testimonial on that.
Yeah, I mean, we get involved with whatever we can. I mean, get the students to do tours. I volunteer, and we're going through our NASTAF review, which, if some of you guys know what that is, that's a lot of fun. With the local college, we try to, we get them out. We do mock interviews with a lot of the students. I volunteer to get in and do mock interviews with the students because they have no idea what's going to happen when they go out to interview. And that's always been a good thing. And frankly, I found some really good kids just doing the mock interviews. But it's always been really helpful to the students and instructors like it. There's just so many needs they have. There's times that we upgrade equipment, and our equipment, for me at least, when we upgrade equipment, we still have great equipment. A lot of times the colleges need that equipment. I have customers that get rid of very high-tech vehicles for an expensive problem, and there's times I can get my customers to donate the vehicle to the high school or to the college, and they have a vehicle they can use for training. There's just so many ways you can do very little things without even outlaying much money.
Okay, so one of the things that came up in yesterday's discussion, and it was so apropos, and I don't mean to pull on what we did yesterday, but I just have to because it's fresh on top of my mind. And one of the things that I actually got up during the panel, and I put in my 3 cents, and I said, you got to follow the money. And here's what I mean by that. A couple of discoveries that I had, and actually the Department of Labor even confirmed it, is that some of the counselors, they've got requirements and incentives to make sure that they're 100% college bound with their group of kids. We also were told by the Department of Labor that the Department of Defense has incentives to help recruit for the Army, Navy, Coast Guard, and Marines. Interesting, right? Very interesting. And there's still that stigma that's going on inside. Well, send Johnny to to VOTEC. And some of the kids that are being asked to go to college want to go to VOTEC. how do we stop that at the educator level? Aaron, you would maybe be the best person here, actually you and David. How do we get that message out? We can join the advisory panels, but we have to get in deeper. School boards, do we literally, we're the premier shop in the neighborhood. We know it, we feel it, we are. Should we be going to sit down with a counselor, a principal, or a superintendent?
I'll go ahead and talk on that. We have seen, that's been our biggest hiccup with our system and how we're enrolling students is we give so many options for students to take different classes throughout our high schools that it's kind of overwhelming. And so our counselors are spread many different directions. They're supposed to tell students to go this route, or take this class, go talk with this person, visit this school. And it's so much that they get overwhelmed with meeting those requirements of students needing to be in these programs or helping us out. And so we're trying to find easier and better ways using social media, for example, or things like this, doing podcasts to inform the parents and students so that we can reach them outside of just our counselors and principals, because they are so used to having things handed to them. Hey, take this class or do this, or other teachers recruiting for their program or their after school activities, that it just gets so much. So we're trying to find more creative ways to reach the students that we can, if we can get to them often and they can hear that message often, hopefully our numbers will increase. Now, we just started that this year, so we don't have the data to back that up yet to see if it's working. But from our just talking with students, parents, they're hearing it. And so we know something's getting out there, but we haven't seen the increase in enrollment yet.
David, your perspective on that?
Trying to find the mute button there. I think one thing that's worked really well for us is actually bringing the counselors here. I go out and do plenty of talks, at different schools, and counselors are there and they hear it, but seeing is believing, I think. For example, recently we had a car set up to do some ADAS training, and targets were set up in the room, and a couple of counselors came through and they said, "What are you guys doing?" So when they saw the complexity and technicality of just one aspect of the jobs that, we're training technicians to do, that's a huge takeaway for them. So they go back and they go, all right, this is not what we thought it was, which is what you want them to think it is. I think the challenge also is when they go, all right, well, what's the rate of pay for a student that's, out in a dealership or, and that always becomes the complicated question, because rates of pay are all over the place. So that, I think, bring them in, show them what it is. And then the challenge is on the back end, making sure that, independent repair shops, franchise stores, dealerships, like Seth, go to a model like that, where you have a scaled pay plan, you have incentive-based pay, you have milestones for these, apprentice technicians to hit, and that they're being mentored. It doesn't all, again, come down to compensation, but students want to see a pathway from point A to point B. And if counselors see that that's in place, they're going to have a lot better feeling about going, hey, Johnny, go into the automotive industry, because if you do X, Y, and Z, it's going to equate to this in terms of what your salary is going to be.
We brought some of the high school principals and guidance counselors, and we've actually got some of them to tour our shop, and that kind of opens their eyes when they see the work that these guys and gals and kids and adults are doing. Especially when you get the superintendent of the school district to really come down. That took some trying, but superintendent of the high school came down and saw what we do, and there was a couple Lamborghinis on the floor that day and a bunch of stuff going on, and he really go, oh boy.
That's awesome. Yeah, seeing is believing for sure.
What a great thing. I mean, you brought up something huge, David, and that is, so what can they earn? So I'm going to ask you that question live, right? You're giving me the tour. You're showing them all this high-tech stuff, all the targets, all the ADAS calibration going on. So what can they earn? How would you answer that?
Well, It's a loaded question, really, right? Because you think of it, and I can think of some examples of students that we've tried to recruit, believe it or not, to come back and say, hey, you might want to think about putting your hat into the ring for a teaching position somewhere down the road. And they say, wow, I can't take the pay cut to come back and teach. And you go, okay, so clearly this person must be doing pretty well. And you get into some of what the salaries are, and they're substantial. Some of them are, in our market, we're in the New York market, so we have a high cost of living. Pay wages tend to be a little bit higher than the national average. But we have quite a few technicians that are out there making a six-figure salary. However, the norm is, and this is the challenge, when a student starts as an apprentice, I would say that the average right now for us on Long Island is around minimum wage or better. So it's a tough pill for a student to swallow, to say, all right, well, I'm going to make the same amount of money as I would make at Aldi's grocery store down the road, to work on a $100,000 car, to buy my own tools, and to not have an end in sight for getting out of that pay range, especially if they're on a lube rack, or not in a situation, such as Seth presented, where, they're working with a mentor and there's incentive-based pay. So that's the challenge, is the range, right? Getting them beyond that feeling of, gosh, I'm making $13, $14, $15 an hour. How do I support myself? How do I support, living on my own, having a family, buying a house? How do I make a livable wage? And that's the challenge, is that the learning curve initially, I think, in our industry is probably 5 to 7 years to get to the point where you're probably making a pretty solid salary. And when I say that, that's a generalization. I would say that's more the norm than the exception. I think the exception right now is a shop like Seth's, and we have to get from an exception to the norm. All right, make Seth's scenario the norm, and I think that's what we're up against as an industry, is making that a reality.
Yeah, I mean, tools are a huge cost to these techs, and I beat shop owners over the head on some of our shop owner forums about it, and I get grief every day about it, but I continue to beat on them. Our apprentices, when they're hired in, we tell them don't bring tools. We supply a basic toolbox, and we tell them to buy as you need, and we have some tool incentive programs to help them purchase their tools. But if they have some tools, great, they can bring them, but we generally tell them that we'll supply everything you need as you start and as you grow. Now, it comes with some rules. Obviously, we inventory our tools every night, and if you guys stay an hour and a half to find that 10mm socket you lost, then I'll sit there for an hour and a half and you'll find the socket. Sure. I mean, it's teaching them to be respectful, and it helps them later when they own their tools. But yeah, I mean, the wages need to get fixed. The analogy I use is my brother went to school to be an engineer. All my brothers went to school to be engineers. I went to school to be a technician, and they get paid way above what they're worth coming out of school, because they aren't worth what they're getting paid coming out of a four-year school. It's just not the case. They're smart, brilliant people. They're my brothers. I love them, but they're not worth what they're getting paid out of school. Same thing with any field, right? We have to pay these kids more. We have to pay them what's commensurate with what's going to happen going forward, not what they're worth that minute they walk in.
Pay them based on the expectations you have for them and the plans that you create. I sat through just a very small amount of a class yesterday, being taught by Bob Cooper and Darren Barney from Elite Worldwide, and they presented this incredible spreadsheet on technician pay, based on ASE certifications, based on tenure, and based on efficiency. It was really incredible, and they believe that every technician inside the company they all know this is it, and the better you are, and the longer you've been out of school, and if you've gone to school, there's the pay program. And look at what, and the top end was huge, and the bottom end wasn't no minimum wage. It was a respectable place to start. And as soon as you started to be more efficient, and as soon as you started to get your ASEs, your pay went up. It's a whole career pathing idea. Seth and I are going to come back, I think, in a few weeks and do a Town Hall Academy titled, "How Can We Pay Our Technicians $100,000 a Year?" Am I right?
Yep.
and we've got to, and I think that's a dialogue that we need to have. I know that people are going to come and hang out and listen to that and say, how the hell do you do that? Well, guess what? It's one of the most important things we can do. Will the 100,000 be, the high end, the top end? Will it be 20% of the industry? Yes. But that middle group doesn't need to be $30,000. It needs to be, $50,000 to $80,000. I think the opportunity in our industry is so big, but our leadership team, our owners need to step to the plate and re-engineer themselves and their businesses. And many have, but not enough have, because David, Aaron, you're probably fighting that stereotypical, well, it's just a grease monkey job. It's a blue collar, ugly thing, and they don't make a lot of money. And you try to tell them what the exception is, but we've got to figure out what the rule is. And we need to help you by running better businesses and coming up with some really great career pathing and pay programs. And I'm off my soapbox, and I'm off it. I'm off it. As the average age of vehicles keeps rising, your customer's old engine or transmission is going to wear out. And when that day comes, Jasper will be the name to remember. Jasper's remanufactured products cost considerably less than a new vehicle, so it just makes sense to choose Jasper for your customers' drive, train solutions. How do we go out and get the messaging right, guys, that we're in a high-tech business? What can we talk about? What can we show? Yeah, you can do the shop tours and everything, but when we're asked to go out, what do we need to bring with us to show people what we're doing? A presentation, a video, equipment, tools? What do we got to do?
I think for high school and middle school, they want to touch things. They want to see things. They want to maybe have some type of project that they can put together. They're hands-on, because those students that want to be in these programs are hands-on students. So that's going to be something to attract them with. In our districts too, we're also working on those non-traditional students to be in the program. So increasing that. So finding ways to make it acceptance for everybody in different ways, so they can be attracted to the automotive programs and all the programs we promote. We're also looking, not along with your question, we don't have direct feeder classes from our middle schools for our 9th grade, our sophomore year. Our programs start junior year, so we have nothing for them besides just talking with them. So we need classes as well to feed into those automotive programs so students can stay with it early and continue on. I think that would increase our numbers and have the students more involved with it too.
If you had 5 or 6 independent shop owners at your beck and call, wanting to work with you, just on call whenever you need them, your go-to, how are you going to find them?
How do we find them? Well, what I previously said before is we have our automotive instructor. He's fantastic. He's involved with our community colleges too. He teaches there. And so he's able to tap into the resources of the community college as well as our local areas. I mean, we have around our schools, we have many companies. A lot of those are large companies, to tell you the truth. I think we do need to increase our individual shops, like you were mentioning, to be within the schools. But we're always accepting more people. If they could be there, we'll take them. We'll fit them in.
I have to tell you something. I think our independent group, and Seth, confirm or deny this, we're missing such an opportunity. The kids are being siphoned off into the dealerships. Listen, I got a lot of friends in the everybody's on my panel. Like I said, 80% of them are dealership guys. They're great guys. They're hardworking. They care about our industry, but I think they're making a few missteps. But we're finding out that the groups that's if you will fading out after a couple of years are not joining the independents. And they're going to other careers. They've got a toolbox. They've got some basic mechanical skills. 2 years in, it's Department of Transportation's. It's diesel. It's forklift. It's boating. They want to work with their hands. A lot of the programs are better there. And I guess my plea here continues to be, and it's been a theme of the show for so many guys, even like Seth, that have come on, get involved. You've got to be involved. So if you're involved at the community college and they're finding out that someone may be leaving, someone's got to put their hand up and said, send everyone who got disenfranchised to me.
And I think some of it is the independents need to get involved. Some of it is they know how. So some of it falls on, and I'll plead to Dave and Aaron that call some of the bigger independents that are nicer. Go visit them. Go talk to them. tell them, hey, this is how you can get involved. Can we come to a shop tour? Some of these guys are really busy at some of these independent shops and they don't know what to do. It's not that they don't, but I know they should reach out, but sometimes you guys should reach out to them and say, hey, what can we do? Because too many guys end up at the dealer. They do churn out. They don't come to us. And a lot of the programs are heavily sending guys to the dealer, and that's because the dealer does a much better job of recruiting through the colleges. They show up at every event. They're on every trade board sheet. They're there and they're recruiting, and they do a better job of it. So consequently, that's where the students end up. That's where the students come back and talk to. That's what the instructors push students to. It is a hard transition to get these guys to look outside of that. And that's been a struggle for a while. But I think sometimes the colleges need to reach out to the other shop owners. And I know that takes some work on your part too.
Yeah, I'll just weigh in on that a little bit too. Yeah, occasionally I think we're all too much in our own silos. We get tied up in a day-to-day of what we have to do. And a lot of times I just have to jump in the car and I have to go and stop in and see different shops. And I think the challenge in our market is in the New York metropolitan area, there are over 3,000 registered repair shops. My program has 207 students. So the challenge for me is, okay, how do I keep the phones quiet with the amount of shops that call on a daily basis? And I say that kind of facetiously because we need, the need for our students to go out and work. But at the same time, the demand is so great, I could quadruple our program and still not make a dent. So that I think is a part of the challenge with the colleges too, is that, in terms of especially community colleges, we're lightly staffed, we're, not human resource rich. So I think that's a challenge for us as well, is we a lot of times are in a triage mode. We're trying to put fires out for who's calling, and yeah, a lot of times the low-lying fruit becomes the dealer shops because, quite frankly, the students, it's in their face. So, I've got a fleet of 100 cars from, 7 different manufacturers. Most of them are 5 years old or newer. So I'm getting 2019 vehicles already. So the students are seeing those cars. They go, wow, I think I might like to go work for Chevy. So yeah, the struggle, for the independent shops is real. We can do a better job clearly as a college. But collectively, I think, as an industry, we just need to be involved and do as much as we can. And I think the challenge for everyone is time, right? Time is our, most valuable resource. But, channeling our time and using our time as best we can. I've always had a passion for the aftermarket. I grew up in independent repair shops, and I love to see students get into the right shop as well. So, yeah, it's just a matter of collectively staying out of our silos and being involved, and a person like me visiting your business, but you visiting the community college as well. It's a two-way street.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, sometimes even if you set up a tour of a high-end independent, if you find one high-end independent and tell them there are shops like this out there, that sometimes is just all it takes to give them a little opening.
Yeah, we've had some fantastic independent shops we work with, and we continue to work with. We do a career fair every year, so typically that's another way for us to have a single point of saying, hey, we're open to everyone. It's not just dealerships, it's not just chain stores, it's not just independents. We want to show students, the large array of opportunities that are available to them. In a sense, it's a bit of a challenge because now you really open the door to, okay, this skill set is transferable, right? As Carm mentioned, forklifts. We had Crown forklifts here visiting a couple of weeks back, and $21.50 an hour is the starting wage for a forklift mechanic for Crown here on Long Island. So you walk out of trade school and into a $21.50 an hour job that is not flat rate, that pays time and a half if you go over 40 hours, double time on like a Sunday, for example, or on call. So that's the the other part to the equation is, that the students that we're training have a very highly transferable skill set. So we constantly have to be in the mode of, as the automotive industry, of encouraging, and this is part of my role, is encouraging our partners to be aware of that, and also to be really cognizant of the fact that, their competition is not necessarily the shop down the street or the dealership down the street. Their competition is broad. It's a lot broader than a lot of times we would want to admit.
Yeah, our techs are getting poached by other industries, especially if we can't show them a career path. And Seth, it's more than not always the money, and you know this. It's the culture, it's the commitment to training, it's having the right tools. It's time off, it's recognition, it's all of that. And to me, that's such a big part of the change that's necessary in our industry. The top performers, they get it, but it's the ones in the middle that we really need them to step to the plate and help, because again, I always think that, is there going to be another 10 or 20 years where if you're not at that level, you're going to be out? I don't know. I just can't quite confirm it. What do you think of that?
Well, the industry needs to take care of themselves too. I'm going to go back to one of Dave's opening comments about pairing the technician with the wrong mentor. We have an opening in one of our companies, and we interviewed a guy, and we talked about one of our core beliefs and core competency and core culture beliefs is we are a training facility. We believe in training techs. And the one guy we're interviewing said, well, as long as he doesn't get in my way. Well, there you go, strike three, you're out. You're not getting the job. He's a very talented tech, don't get me wrong. He could do real well in my company, but he's not going to fit into the culture. And he firmly said, if that tech gets in my way, I don't want him there. Well, then you don't fit our company. And so eventually, as an industry, if we want to push forward with what we need with true apprenticeships and things like that, then we have to look at who do we want in this industry still, and what do we have to do to push some of those people out or make them change their beliefs.
Wow. A final comment, and maybe Aaron and David, you could support this or just tell me I'm crazy. But one of the things that I recently discovered is that we have a program here in New York called BOCES, Board of Cooperative Extension, and everybody gets together, 4 or 5 schools, and there's this one VOTEC center that's all shared by it, and the kids get bused over to that BOCES. And that's where the CTE programs exist. What I was told is that for every student that goes over there, the principal loses X amount of money every year toward his own budget, because he's got to pay for that. And there's school systems with 2,000 or 3,000 kids, and they're only sending 17 to CTE. And someone said, what's going on? They said, follow the money path. So they actually put a top limit on it. And have you ever heard that, Dave?
Yeah. We deal with, in fact, I worked at a BOCES center before I came to the college. It was actually my first teaching job. I think the challenge there is they have a business model, right? In order for them to survive, there has to be a cost to send students there. What we've seen on Long Island is a unique place because you have to take a bridge or a plane or a boat to get here. And we sort of have a captive audience, but we also have 200 plus districts in just Nassau and Suffolk County. So with all those different districts, a lot of the districts are now starting to create their own automotive programs, their own mechatronics programs, their own STEM programs, and they're doing a lot of the vocational pieces that BOCES was offering and has been providing for years in-house. So my challenge is that I go out and visit a lot of these school districts and kind of help them to establish their programs. And what I found is that a lot of these programs are putting new life back into automotive. So that's one of the interesting things that you're seeing, is that a shift away from the vocational schools here in New York back to the individual districts.
I love it.
Yeah, and it's really it really is a great piece, because they can all of a sudden, have a whole nother pipeline for technicians. I just went out recently to Long Beach High School in Nassau County, which is in a pretty prominent area in Nassau County down by the water. and beachfront properties in many instances. But there was 85 students in this automotive program that is just, you would never even know it existed unless you went looking for it.
And you probably looked at them as potential recruits, right?
Absolutely.
Wow.
So establishing pipelines of students from high schools to community college to shops like Seth's that ultimately are going to take care of them is the model we need to build and replicate.
I'm so glad I asked you that question, because you just opened my eyes to that, and I didn't know that was going down there on Long Island. 200 and some districts. We talk about duplication of overhead. It's just that's what drives me nuts. I just can't believe that they can't do some consolidation.
Yeah, that's why our taxes are ridiculous here, but I didn't say that out loud.
No, you didn't. I didn't hear you. Your governor did not hear you. Hey, I want to thank Anthony Williams for hanging out with us. He's here on the Zoom platform. You got to go back to episode 418 and listen to me, Anthony, and Chris Chesney. We were, wow, Anthony is in charge of this new, charter automotive school, AIST, out in Colorado. And it is a vision of his, and they are working hard and funding and building and curriculums, and totally exciting program. So thank you for being here, Anthony. I appreciate your contributions to the show. Now, let's sum this up, but I want to give one more high five and shout out to Jasper. Why purchase a Jasper quality remanufactured product? Well, it's their people. And I was to the plant. I was hanging out with some of their incredibly dedicated people. A Jasper associate is dedicated to high quality customer service. They're committed to excellence and extremely professional in that group. They've got pride of ownership as part of a 100% associate-owned company. And if you get a chance to visit the plant through your Jasper rep, go. So great company, a lot of great people. I've been kind of listening and doing some writing at the same time and trying to pull the essence of the talking points here today. Let me give you my summary before I ask you all for a final comment. Student tours of your shop. Speak to career days. Don't miss one. If you're going to make any kind of phone call, make it to the school and says, hey, when's your career day? Be it middle school, be it high school. Bring the guidance counselors and the principals to tour your shop. Show career paths to parents. My thought on that was, trust me, you have parents that are your customers. They have middle schoolers. Are you talking to them? Hey, Bobby's with you. Does he show? What's he going to do? What do you got planned? What do you have plans, parents, for your kid's career? Did you know? Bring him down to the shop one day. I'd love to show him this high-tech automotive world. And have career paths inside your shop. The worst thing that you would possibly have is to bring someone in and says, you don't want to work in the automotive business, And we hear that sometimes all too often. You get out of here, kid, as quick as you possibly can. What are you, crazy? We need to change that, and I think part of the why and how we need to change that is run better companies with improved cultures. So let me go around the room, Aaron. Thanks for being here. It was great to have you share your perspective on CTE. I'll give you a final word.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me. Dave, I appreciate you saying you went out to Long Beach here in 2 weeks. I'm getting ready to go visit as well to see those programs. So I hear they're a great program out there, so hope it goes really well. But yeah, just like you said, as much as our local companies and community colleges can get into our school districts to help the students and help the teachers and to, find that pathway, that desire to show them that it's not, dirty and not so safe there, because a lot of parents think that the shop's not safe. And so we teach them a lot too with safety, and we teach them a lot of all the new high-tech equipment. And then bringing those cars in too, like you said, some Lamborghinis earlier, and the students love seeing that. And that's even my son, that's what brightens his eyes up when he's going to all these different programs with me, is seeing those cool cars. And that's what he wants to work on now. And so if you can bring those things in, give them the things they can touch, and let them play with it, I think that's going to really help increase our enrollment overall.
He just brought up a great point, Seth. I mean, you had a Lamborghini in there because you were working on it, right?
We were working on it. I do have some we bring up to the schools. I mean, I brought them to the high school. I brought them to the college. I mean, we get some of those cool cars in the students' hands for them to,
Cool.
to
All
look
right.
and see.
Well, that's ingenious. So you better go out and find some friends that have Lamborghinis who will let you drive it for a day. Seth, I'll give you the last word, or I'll give you your final word. I'm sorry.
No, I mean, it's a great panel. I mean, they're doing some good things with the schools, and happy to see more people getting involved from the colleges and on your show.
Hey, thanks so much for all your support, and we got a really hot topic coming up in a few weeks. Thank you for that. Dave, you actually have the last word now.
All right. Well, thank you for having me again. It's been a pleasure to be here and on this esteemed panel and on your show. We have a lot of work to do, and it's a daily, it's a daily grind. But at the same time, the more of success we have out there, and the more folks like you spreading the word, and folks like us in the community colleges and the high schools, the more we can collectively work together towards this same goal and continue to tell this story, we'll make a difference.
Thanks. And do me a favor, everyone who's listening, don't let this go in one ear and out the other. Find a way to really make a change in how you speak to and for our industry. Make the phone call. You said, Dave should reach out. Yeah, maybe Dave should reach out. Maybe Aaron should reach out. But really, it benefits you the most, service professional owner. It's not hard. Your lunch break, drive to the school, walk in and say, hey, who's the department chair? Who's the principal? And even if they can't see you at that moment, get the business card, do something about it. If we start a grassroots effort, because we're going to fix our problems, the pendulum is going to swing, and we just got to have the right messaging. We got to fix it. We got to fix any problems that we have inside too. Hey, thank you so much, Seth Thorson in Atlanta, out there for training. Thank you so much for catching an early flight so you could be on here today from Eurotech in Brighton, Minnesota. And Seth created a $25,000 endowment for automotive careers in his good old hometown. We talked about that in episode 340. Dave Muckles, academic chair of Suffolk Community College, State University of New York, automotive technology. Thanks so much. And Aaron Dalton, North Kansas City Schools, the coordinator of school to career programming. Thank you guys for being here. Have a great weekend.